Morning, John. What you got planned for today?
Well, we've got a few installations lined up. We're going to start with a gas range. You ever installed one of those?
Can't say that I have.
Well, you can after today. Here, check out our accessories. Make sure we've got everything we need. Accessories can be as important as the appliance once we're on the job site. And check out the model and number on the paperwork for me. I'll go call Mrs. Bailey.
Let's see here. JG GP30, check. Colors right, check. All right. Cables. Installation kit. Looks like we're good to go, John.
Hello, Mrs. Bailey. This is John Cooper of GE Delivery. Just calling to let you know we're on our way. Yes, ma'am. Probably in about 15 minutes. Okay, we'll see you then.
Everything matches up, John.
All right, Jack, let's load up.
Man, why don't we just park in the driveway?
Well, we never know what the homeowner's plans are for the day. We don't want to block anyone in, so that's why we park on the street. I'll go greet the homeowner. How are your shoes, Jack?
Pretty comfortable for steel-toe boots, I guess, but I could stand to break them in a bit more.
No, Jack, are they dirty?
A little. It was a bit rainy yesterday.
Okay, grab some booties.
But John, I have an image to maintain.
Just take the darn booties.
Oh, you've got to be kidding me. I thought these things were little shower caps. I was wondering what you were doing with these.
It's a small price to pay for keeping the customer's carpets clean.
And we're making a fashion statement at the same time.
All right, Jack. Before we proceed with this range installation, I really want to stress the importance of being thorough at every step. We're dealing with gas here, so we have to take every precaution and make sure that the local codes are followed to the letter. So, before we do anything, we always start with a site assessment. That way we can be certain that everything will proceed as planned once we're underway. All right. As with any installation, check for pre-existing damage to the floors, walls, or cabinets, and let the homeowner know if you find anything.
Everything's in pretty good shape.
All right, that's just the way we'll leave it. Once you've done that, you need to take some measurements to ensure that we have the necessary dimensions. This is important not just for installation, but to ensure proper use after it's installed. I know for a fact Mrs. Bailey had to have her top cabinet removed because it didn't allow for proper clearance over the stove.
So what happens if you show up to install an appliance and the site doesn't meet the proper requirements?
You very, very, very politely explain to the customer that the installation can't be done. But proper pre-screening should prevent that from happening. Well, let's talk through it. First, make sure that there's a space of 30 inches across to accommodate the range. We also must be sure that there's a minimum of 30 inches from the cooktop to the overhead cabinet. The cooktop itself stands at 36 inches from the ground, so we've got to have 66 inches from the floor. The overhead cabinets cannot exceed a depth of 13 inches from the wall. We don't want those completely covering the range. We're fine there. The cabinets immediately next to the range must be a minimum of 18 inches from the cooktop. If the cabinets have walls on the sides of the range cavity, they must be 1 inch away from the side of the cooktops for standard burner models and 2 inches for sealed burner models. The total depth of the unit with the door open is 46 3/8 inches. That can be important to know if there's an island or a peninsula in the kitchen. All right, now let's check the location of the gas supply line and the electrical outlet. There's a great diagram in the installation guide that shows you the acceptable locations for both those things. Now there's our gas supply line, and it's what we need. The gas supply line has to be rigid pipe, at least ½ inch, and under no circumstances should it be copper. Copper bends too easily and the gas can corrode it. Give it a good look over and make sure that it and the shutoff valve are in good condition. Now it's time to locate the main gas shutoff valve for the house so we can get to it quickly in case there's an emergency. I'll go do that, and you start uncrating the appliance. Let's check the unit for damage and make sure that no parts have come loose during shipping.
Yeah, everything's secure.
All right, let's take it inside. Hold on, Jack. Let me check the wheels of the dolly for gravel. That way we'll make sure we don't mark up the floors inside the house. All right, let's go. All right, the first thing to do is to shut off the local gas supply valve and leave it off until the installation is completed.
It's off.
Now, double check that, will you? You just can't be too careful with those.
It's definitely off.
All right, good. Now we can disconnect the gas supply line from the range and then move this old unit out of here. Okay, the first thing we'll need to do is install the anti-tip device. And since it's packed inside the range, we'll need to remove this tape and these packing materials. Every range must be equipped with an approved anti-tip device. Otherwise, the range could fall over any time someone leans on an open door. Now, mark the edge of the wall where the range will be, the right-hand edge down near the floor, and measure in 2 1/8 inches toward the center of the range. Good. Now, line up the edge of the anti-tip device just inside that line. And use the anti-tip device as a template to mark a hole for the screw. That's right. Now, we'll attach the screw through the anti-tip device and fasten it to the wall. We'll test the anti-tip device after we put the range in place, but first, take a look at all the pieces we'll be connecting. Now, to prevent gas leaks, we'll either apply pipe thread compound or wrap pipe thread tape around the male or external threads. And today, we'll use pipe thread tape. For the next step, we're going to connect a 1/2-inch flare union adapter to the 90-degree elbow on the pressure regulator on the back of the range.
Oh, I see it.
With some models, you've really got to be careful not to over-tighten. Otherwise, you could crack the regulator. I make sure it's snug, but I try to keep my brute strength under control.
That's some restraint there, John.
And again, notice that I'm reinforcing these connections with the pipe thread tape. Now we're ready to connect the flexible metal appliance connector to the adapter on the range. Never, ever use an old flexible connector. There's just too much risk of leaks. Now, once you're connected to the range, you'll be ready to connect to the gas supply. And once again, back up the shutoff valve to keep it from turning. Here. So now we're going to replace an existing flare union adapter because it doesn't fit the flexible metal connector. That's why I always carry an assortment of adapters in my toolbox. You just never know what you're going to need until you need it. I always back it up with a second wrench so the house plumbing won't be affected.
That's fairly simple.
Yeah, the actual connections aren't that complicated. The important thing is to pay careful attention to every detail. To ensure safety, you really can't be too thorough. Once the connections are completed, check the control knobs on the range to make sure they're all in the off position. Then we can turn on the gas here at the local supply valve. Good. Now, to test for leaks, we're going to use a liquid leak detector. Actually, a little bit of dishwashing soap and water would work just as well. We'll spread the leak detector on all the joints and connections. If you see a bubble, then you've got a gas leak.
Everything looks snug.
Good. Next, for this particular model, we'll need to connect the power cord.
Some models won't require electrical connections?
That's right, not always, but this one does, and that's good because it gives me a chance to go over it with you. Always make sure that you're plugging into a properly grounded 120-volt, 60-hertz receptacle connected to a branch circuit that's protected by a 15 to 20-amp circuit breaker or a time delay fuse. Try never to use an extension cord. There's just too many hassles, too many safety hazards involved. If you absolutely have to, then you must use a UL-listed 3-wire properly grounded appliance type extension cord.
So what you're saying is that we can use an extension cord, but it's best to try to avoid them?
That's exactly right. Luckily, in this case, we won't need one. All right, come on out. We'll put the unit in place and level it. Good. Now we'll level the range using the adjustable legs. Let's take out this drawer at the bottom. Now you should be able to reach into the back and find the adjustable legs in the rear of the range. Back them each out about 2 turns. They should move freely by hand, but I'll get an adjustable wrench if you need it. Now the front legs.
Also by 2 turns?
Well, Jack, we've got tile on the floor in the front of this installation, so let's try just 1 turn.
That's it right there.
Good. Now we'll check our work with the spirit level. When you put the level down, always put it down in 2 directions. First diagonally one way, that's right, and then the other. All right, Jack, let's install the shelves. Now check them with the level, diagonally first one way and then the other. If they're a little bit off, we'll adjust the legs.
Ah, it's level.
Oh, how about that? All right. Now it's time to check for the anti-tip device to make sure that it's working. Hold the cooktop and tilt it forward gently. Yeah, feel it catch?
Yeah.
It's secure. We'll need to test the burners, but first let's assemble the cooktop. Put the drip pans in. That's right. Now we call this the pizza box. It's the burner assembly. If you open it up toward the back of the range, like this, you'll see that they're already in the right positions to be installed. Just put the burner head on and line that little notch up with the igniter that you see. And top it off with the cap. They're not interchangeable, so you've got to make sure that you put them in the right spots. All right, good. We'll set the grates now. You'll see how they fit together. This little notch here connects to this one here. And now we're ready to test the burners. Pick one of the knobs on the cooktop and push it in and turn it to the light position. Hear that click sound? Well, that means the spark module's working correctly. It can take a few seconds for the burner to light while the air is being purged from the lines. Now, take a good close look at the flames. That's the way they should be, a nice, soft blue. If they're yellow, then turn off the burner and check a few things. Check to make sure that the burner is flat on the cooktop, that you have the right size cap on the burner, and that the cap itself is sitting flat on the burner. Now, go ahead and check all the other burners on this cooktop. Good. Now let's check the oven burner. The oven's designed to operate quietly and automatically. Now, to operate it on this model, turn the oven knob to, say, 350 degrees. Now, it should take between 30 and 90 seconds for the oven burner to ignite. The oven burner will burn until the temperature is reached and then cycle on and off to maintain that temperature. Now, let's check the broil burner. On this model, that burner is located up at the top of the oven cavity. Now that we know we can produce flames, we need to check the quality of the flames and make any adjustments that are necessary. The flames for the broil burner should be steady blue cones, about 1 inch, and they shouldn't extend past the edge of the burner baffle. The air adjustment shutter for the broil burner is located in the center of the rear oven wall. To adjust it, loosen the Phillips screw and rotate the door to the open or closed position to increase or decrease the airflow. The shutter to adjust the bottom burner is near the back wall behind where the drawer would be, and that's adjusted the same way as the top burner. We're all set. Put the drawer in, take off the last of this packing material, and check to make sure all the controls are off, if you would. I'll check in with Mrs. Bailey.